recording. All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Tabletop Talks. This is Coach J. Rowe, the Unsummoned Skull. I'm joined today by
Mr. Bevers, hello. How's it going?
also Mr. Bevers. Glad to have you. uh, Not in a place that's not necessarily known for cheese, but definitely, certainly an enjoyer of it. So
Very fair.
before we get started on the actual topic of the day, where did the cheese hat come from?
Oh dear. Okay, you're gonna drudge up memories here. Okay,
Oh, of
so
course.
the cheesehead was actually a gift to me from my father, who went on a business trip to Green Bay in
Poor soul.
1996. So we'll just date myself a little bit. He brought that hat back for me at that time, and I've had it ever since. So that's kind of where it came from. What at the time was he a Green Bay fan or a football fan? Was I a Green Bay fan or a football fan? The answer is no to both of those questions. So why did he bring the cheese hat back? I don't know. I
Look
mean, he
cool?
just. I think it was more like this is an interesting souvenir from the place I went to visit, so I'll bring it back. Um,
Oh yes, if somebody's not particularly familiar with with Green Bay or football, a giant what is it, plastic or rubber hat
Foam.
made of foam
Yeah.
hat made of cheese would seem pretty out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, like the hat sat in my parents' basement for, you know, 20 or more years, basically being unused. And then when I started streaming, I was like, you know what? I'll just pull this out and just wear it occasionally if people want me to put it on my head. And they were like, as soon as people learned I had a cheese head, they were like, yes, you have to wear that all the time. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I have a huge box of hats beside me just because it's a thing that people enjoy doing to
Nice.
you if you're a streamer, right? This is going to lead us into our topic of tonight,
Oh,
probably. But
absolutely.
yeah,
I
so
actually randomly have just on my floor right now. I have a safari hat, a leprechaun hat, and my old football helmet.
nice. Yeah.
They're all
See,
just
exactly.
randomly on the floor.
Yeah, they're just, but they're close. They're within reach, so you
Yeah,
can just slip them on at any moment, right?
and look completely out of place. But yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But listen, that's the point, right?
hmm yeah, maybe one of these days when I do like a particularly chaotic stream, I'll put on my football helmet and say, okay, we're into the chaos mode of the game. Let's strap it in, fellas.
Everybody, get ready because we're gonna make some wild plays.
Oh yeah, maybe that's my mana flare hat.
There you go. There you go.
Nice. Okay. So where might folks know you from?
Oh dear. So I think probably most prolifically is probably the Twitch channel, and that is just my name, Mr. Bevers, at twitch.tv/Mr. Bevers, where I do chat Chaos Commander on Tuesdays and Saturdays. It's probably my biggest community interaction thing that I have at the moment. Although I did start my Magic career on YouTube doing pack openings and things like that. I have like probably a backlog of well over 1,000 videos just across a plethora of sets and different styles of video, whether they're short or long, and various things like that. And I had a large group of I guess like patrons slash community members for a while, specifically on the YouTube when I was doing that because I was doing like grab bag giveaways of like the cards I was opening on the channel and stuff. So that brought in a lot of folks, right? Of course, because you like to give out the product to people and they like to support you and also get their hands on some of the cool cards and stuff that you open during the streams. And so that's sort of like those two places would probably be the biggest places people would know me from. Although, I'm around the internet on a bunch of other things as well, like Bluesky and things like that. And I do have an Instagram account and a TikTok account and things like that as well. I don't use them as heavily, but they do exist.
Absolutely. If I recall, the pack opening that we did was so yeah, I did one with you, and it was Dragon's Maze because I love Dragon's Maze. One of the few people who does. It was Dragon's Maze, and we were trying to see how many complete sets of Wooburg we could get.
That's right. So I used to do a series on the YouTube channel. I think I don't even remember what I called that one specifically, but it was like a charity pack battle kind of
Hmm.
series that I did. So I filmed it with, myself and one other creator or guest, whoever wanted to be on the show, basically.
Or me.
And we did exactly what you said. And hey, listen, you're in there with it. Don't There's no negative self talk here, right? So,
Okay.
um, you're right in there with the thick of us, so don't worry about it. But
That's
the
good.
point is that like we would do this charity pack battle to essentially um, do a stipulation pack battle, which was like you said for us when we did Dragon's Maze, we did who got the most sets of Wooburg. So you counted all your pips at the end, and whoever had the most sets of the 5 pips won the battle. And the way we did it is you would pick a charity and I would pick a charity, and whoever won, both people that were competing would donate X amount of dollars to the charity of the winner's choice, right? So that's basically how it
Yep.
works.
I believe it
Um,
was Canadians Against Cancer, something along those lines.
I'm not sure. Yeah, like I mean, I rotated between about 3 or 4
Okay.
Canadian charities on my side, but my guests, of course,
Hmm.
always had different varying things. Like I've done a lot for like Alzheimer's in the U.S., right, and then a bunch of like folks picked local food banks and things like that as well, which was great. It's good to support those things as well as show the community that there's these things out there that you can do outside of just cracking a pack for no value, as people call it, right?
Absolutely. And one of the great things to do once you have the kind of audience that we're working to build is then leverage that audience and use that to help do good. Even if you wind up having, say, each member of the audience donate $5, well, if you have a 30-person audience, that's what, $150. That's a pretty sizable amount.
Exactly.
So, yeah, you can do a lot of good once you're able to generate an audience like this. So, once you're able to generate the audience like this, so how do you go about generating an audience?
Well, I mean, like, I'm sure that this question's probably been answered by a lot of folks who have been
Yeah.
doing these talks prior to me as well, right? Engagement is a big part of keeping people sticking around, right? It's easy enough to make flashy images and things to pull people in the first place, right? It's another thing to keep them engaged and interacting with them in a meaningful way that makes them feel like they're part of the community, right?
Hmm.
You need to do those things to keep people around. Otherwise, they'll move on to the next thing because they don't feel like they're a part of the community or a part of the family or whatever you want to call it,
Hmm.
right? And so keeping those people engaged is a big part, and you can do that in a number of ways. I mean, the main topic that we're going to talk about tonight, I think, is going to be about the interaction of allowing your community to participate in your content. Um, I do it in real time, but you don't have to do it that way. There are a number of other ways that you can do interaction, right? A lot of
Hmm.
people will do things like, community day events and things like that, where, you set up pods all day on your servers and things like that. I mean, the tabletop jocks do this, right? Where they
Hmm.
have days where people can just jam games all day at any given time, right? And just pick up a pod with people, and you might just happen to end up in a pod with one of the creators, right? Which is great, right, for the community, right? They get this sense of being part of something that's bigger, right? Which is awesome.
Absolutely. There's a
So
variety of different kinds of redemptions that you can put in, or different, yeah, so that you can get people involved. It doesn't have to be something that changes the way that the game is played, although it can be. Uh,
sure, I mean, like if we're gonna get into the minutia of what I do with my stream and stuff, or versus what you can do, yeah, there's like you said, there's a ton of ways that you can interact or allow people to interact that don't necessarily affect the game, right? Hmm.
so I think about, say, Davy F. Jones with the Goblin voices.
That's right, exactly. And
Uh,
it's a great example, right? I mean,
mhm.
she puts out these things that allow people to spend their channel points on Twitch, right? Which channel points are essentially like your point system that you get for just watching, right? You can get bonus points by doing a number of other things. And this is something that as creators, we should all be aware of as well, is how the community can generate those points, and you should make sure that that's known to your community as well, so that they know how they can maximize the points they receive if they're looking to spend the points more actively, right? Like there
Mm-hmm.
are a few people, like for instance on my channel, that like to spend all of their points all of the time, right? And there are other people who just kind of hoard their points and are saving up for some of the bigger redemptions.
Mm-hmm.
That's also something that we'll get into in the conversation as well, because it's good to make sure that your redemptions are all not necessarily cheap, but all not necessarily expensive, right? Because you want
Mm-hmm.
to give people that option of, well, I want to spend some amount of points now, but not later. So that way I feel like I can still do something later if I want to with those points, right?
Yeah.
And
And
or it doesn't
those
feel like it's going to take me as long to get there to be able to do those more expensive things, right?
yeah, and those points give a tangible reason for watching, for paying attention, for staying consistently on the stream, um,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
and to an extent for not just leaving it in the background.
Yes, exactly. So I mean, like, and this is the beauty of the channel points on Twitch, right? Is that you can you can just leave it on in the background if you want to save up points so that you can interact the next time. Or if you know there's, something you're saving points for, just leaving the stream on in the background can generate those points for you passively, right? So letting your community know that they can help you just by even leaving you open in a window that's maybe minimized, right, and muted, still helps you as the Twitch streamer, but it also lets them bank points that they can use the next time they are actually able to be active, right? So that helps as well, right? In both cases.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So yeah, you want to keep the audience engaged and involved. You also want to make sure that so that the things that that they feel like they are part of the experience, as part of
For
creating
sure.
a community,
Yeah,
not just having people show up.
that's right. Yeah. So my my experience with my own channel, I'm gonna get deep into the weeds here now,
Sure.
if that's all right with you. And that is, I run the chat chaos to what you would maybe call level 11, right? Like, crank the dial to 11 kind of thing. The chaos is very chaotic, and it is one of those things that it can get out of hand, and your first turn of your game can take 30 to 40 to 50 minutes just to resolve everything that chat has decided they want to do. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily saying that everyone should do it this way. I'm a special kind of ridiculous, I guess, in that sense. I like to have chat abuse me, I guess. Is that the way to put it? Maybe that's not the right way to put it, but the point is that you can do things, like there are a number of other channels out there that do things that are similar to the chaos that I run on my channel, that do it in a way that's a little bit more controlled, right? You can put timers on redemptions, you can put limits on them, you can do all of these things in the back end of Twitch so that you don't have to worry about, hey, I don't want chat to be able to just slam us with redemptions using channel points for the next hour and a half, 2 hours,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can say, hey, chat can only redeem this thing once every 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Heck, you can even be like, each person in chat can only redeem this redeem twice per stream. Like things like that. You can set all of those limits. They let you change all of that stuff on the back end of Twitch. Like it is definitely like a very giving system that Twitch has built for us as creators to use to allow us to enable the community to feel like they can interact and interact at a level that we, the streamers, are comfortable with, right?
Yep.
Because, to use like Command Zoe, for example, you know, she doesn't like to let people, make her drink water. So she's made it cost a lot of points. She could go one further and say each person who's unique in chat can only redeem it once per stream, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that means that you're going to end up with having more people be there to try and make you drink more water, right? If they like to do that to you, kind of thing. Things like this, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of options, basically, right?
But that comes with
And so
establishing consistency, and so establishing consistency with streaming frequently comes with, and again, developing that community where it's not just one person doing this, but when they recognize that it's a running gag, absolutely.
right, exactly. And like here we've got somebody in chat mentioning that they,
Mm-hmm.
that they are saving up points for like a poetry reading, right, on the Hedology's channel. that's awesome, right? Like, and this is another thing that you can do with your channel points as a streamer, right? Is you can do things where, you know, you can set stuff up where that personalizes stuff, right? For the
Hmm.
people who are redeeming those things. So you can make it so that it's like, you know, this person saved up X number of points and finally spent it, and now this thing is theirs, right? Um,
Hmm.
there's so many options out there. And I mean, like, we could go on for hours just talking about all of the different types of ways you can utilize those redemptions. And I mean, we should, right? We should
Hmm.
talk about those things and talk about those examples. So, okay, here's another example. I watch James from LRR on a regular basis myself. Okay,
Hmm.
he does Minecraft on a regular basis on his own home stream. Okay, there's a number of things he gives you the ability to do with your channel points on a regular basis because people watch him for hours on a weekly basis. They have lots of channel points. There's people on his channel that have hundreds of thousands of points. Okay. Right. And so you have to come up with creative ways to make them use those points or make them save those points to then use. And so he's done stuff where it's like, you know, people get to put up a sign in his Minecraft world with whatever text they want on it, provided it, you know, passes, you know, the the checks of the
Yeah.
editors, right? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? The censor checks, right? And his community's well enough that yeah, I don't think he has to worry too much about what's going to get put on the signs. But the point is, like, that's 100,000 point redemption to go put up a sign somewhere, right? And so, like, that's something that people have redeemed multiple times on his channel, right?
Hmm.
And that kind of thing is free to you, the streamer. You know what I mean? Like, it costs you almost nothing to do it,
Hmm.
but it allows your chat to feel engaged. So why wouldn't we utilize these tools, right? I mean,
Yep.
there's so many options out there that we can do, and again, like we've said here, like, you can do things like make people do silly voices. You can have like a hydrate redemption. You can do chaos the way I do chaos if you want and have things affect the game. It's not everybody's cup of tea, right? But
Hmm.
there are lots of other options. I mean, heck, there's even things where you can now make the channel points trigger sound effects or trigger, like, you can, I think Kuro, if I'm remembering correctly, Kuro has redemptions that allow people to change his lights in his room,
I
right? So
don't
you spend
know if
X
it's
amount of channel
redemptions.
points.
I know that it happens when you gift a sub.
So that makes all of his lights flash, right,
Hmm.
when the subs happen. But there is actually redemptions where you can be like, change my lights in my room to
Oh,
be this
neat.
color for X number of points, things like that. And it'll go to that color for, you know, I think it's like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is, and then it'll set it back to normal, right?
So is
So
that
things
like
like
the
that.
Apple lights and such?
Yeah, I would assume so. I mean, I'm not the one familiar with the technology because I
Okay.
haven't used it myself, but like,
Hmm.
yeah, like things like that. You can hook all of the channel points up to those things, right? So there are so many things that you can use these channel points for on Twitch. And we're talking just Twitch, right? This is
Hmm.
just on Twitch. There are so many things that you could take from these channel point type redemptions and move it into other content on your other spaces like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. All of these places have similar, you know, ways to utilize types of interaction like this.
Hmm.
Maybe they don't have a channel point system, maybe they don't have a redemption system as robust as Twitch does, but that doesn't mean you can't put other things into your content that allow them to interact in some way, right? And make them feel like they're a part of the content, right?
Hmm. And when in doubt, you can draw inspiration from any number of different places.
That's
And
right.
sometimes it's drawing inspiration, sometimes it's just incidental. Like
Yes.
when I think of the Chat Chaos, and then I watch like Cutthroat Kitchen on Food Network.
Right.
It,
Yep.
it, it really reminds me of that because it's you're playing a game that people are familiar with, and then you're putting a number of different layers onto it. Like if you
That's
wanted to
correct.
make it
Yeah.
something similar to that, like in Cutthroat Kitchen, they're usually making a standard dish and then they add layers and add layers and add layers and add layers. Well, what if you
For
took,
sure.
say, a pre-con battle? And so everyone has the same base layer, and
Yep.
then you add the chaos to that.
Yeah. Who did that? There was a channel or somebody that was doing something similar with their content a little while ago. I don't remember who it was now because, I mean, my brain is old. But um, someone was doing a thing where it was like they were playing the same four decks, and when you won, you got to add a card to your deck. But if you were the first one out, you had to, like, remove a card from your deck or something like that. And so like the better decks became better and the worse decks became worse,
Hmm.
right?
It's
As
interesting.
as the stream went on. And
Mm-hmm.
when I watched it the first time, I was like, that's interesting, but shouldn't it have been reversed where the deck that's out first gets to add a card and the deck that
Mm-hmm.
wins has to like, downgrade a card or something, right? In their deck.
Mm-hmm.
And it's from like a pool essentially that's available to each of those decks. That's how I would have envisioned it myself, but like these are the kind of things that you can do with other content, right? You could say, "Hey, I'm going to make a YouTube series, right? But I want
Mm-hmm.
my community to feel engaged with it. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I'm gonna set up 4 teams in my community. I'm gonna let my community pick which team they want to be on, and that team is gonna be responsible for curating a sideboard or a pool list for this commander deck. Okay. And then
Mm-hmm.
they take that commander deck and they play it. And when they win or lose, they get to swap a card in or out from the pool based on their ranking. Right.
Hmm.
Right. And then that's your community is now curating that list that's allowing you to upgrade or downgrade your deck. Right. Things like this. These are things that we could be doing. I want this to be real now. It sounds so cool. This is
Yeah.
this is my point, right? It's like these are things that we could just be doing, right, as a community to
Mm-hmm.
engage our communities and make them feel like they're being more interactive with the content, right? Um,
Yeah.
there's just a ton of options out there for stuff like this, right? Like you can do so many different things. For instance, the way that we used to do the YouTube stuff with the charity pack battles, right? You could take that and instead of picking the charity between us, you could have the community vote on the charity that will be donated to the next week, right? During the next
Mm-hmm.
battle, right? And you put up a vote or something on your YouTube posts and your polls because YouTube has that availability. You can do a poll
Mm-hmm.
or something on YouTube. You put up a poll, you give it 3 days time or a week's time, you let your community vote on, and then the top two out of the poll, those are the two charities for next week, right? Then when you record the next episode, you do the pack battle, and whoever wins, the money goes to that charity. Things like this, right? Like you can do things like that to get your community to feel like they're interacting with the content, right? Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the
you
things
can
I've
even
wanted
have
to do on YouTube before is get when somebody has a number of deck techs, when you start to get familiar with the decks that they have, use that to determine what their next gameplay video is going to be. So, who wants to see
you,
more
so,
of what deck?
so you mean like you put out like let's say you put out a video a week if you're
Mm-hmm.
making enough content that you can put out a video a week, you put out a deck tech a week, and then after a month you say, okay, chat, which deck do you want me to see play out of those four in the next play video, right? I'll
Mm-hmm.
play one of the four decks. Well, which one do you want it to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it, right? For sure.
So once you put the deck techs out, then have that be okay. Which of these looks the most interesting to you?
Right, exactly. Right. And then you let them pick because it's going to take you a while to organize that gameplay video and then film it and edit it and get it out. It may
Mm-hmm.
not be the next one that comes out, but it'll be like, the next one we film, we'll be playing one of the four decks, right? Or you play all four decks and you let chat pick some way that's like, who gets to play which. You know who the guests are going to be on the episode, but who's going to play what deck, right? You can let the audience pick that as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, some interesting stuff that you can do with the community and involving it. It's not always necessarily about the gameplay, right? I mean, as we mentioned, like it doesn't all have to be about gameplay. I know it's not for everybody's cup of tea to let someone else drive the bus, as it were, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the aspect of picking what deck you're playing or choosing what plays you make, that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, I mean, circling back, we can do other things, right? Like letting the audience interact with the content in a different way that doesn't necessarily determine the type of content that's being made, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You can figure out if there are particular effects that you're known for that you use a lot of. Um, Start to tie those into things like that. Um, Liking to give players a treasure. Um, I will say, so as a streamer myself, I don't necessarily build in the chaos, although I still haven't really figured out how to use chat redemptions properly. And that's a good thing that we're talking about. Um, that's something that I'm still working on. But when we're talking about giving players a treasure, one of my favorite things to do is to build those things into decks that I make. Um, so I put in a lot of Howling Mine effects. I put in Mana Flare effects because I like to create the chaos and control it
Mm,
that way.
for sure, for sure.
Spectral Searchlight,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah,
When I was just starting, I actually started playing when Mana Burn was a thing. So the person who taught me how to play, my Mr. Day, my favorite teacher of all time, he had a Spectral Searchlight burn deck.
Yeah, J-Ro over here just dating both of us, you know? Remember when Mana Burn was a thing? Yes, J-Ro. I remember when Mana Burn was a thing.
Yeah, damage on the stack was the thing then too.
Yes, it sure was.
But here's the
Man,
thing: we
damage on the
survived
stack.
it. So I decided part of the conversation now. Perfect. Love having you here, and I'm really glad
Yeah,
that
it's
you are.
totally fine. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
thanks for being here.
Oh,
Yeah, like
absolutely.
so to go back to driving the chaos yourself from your own deck. I mean, we're here talking about chat interaction, but I mean, you're leaning into my shtick a little bit with the chaos stuff, and I'm gonna take the bait and I'm gonna run with it, and that is that like, the chaos that I run on my stream is like just absolutely chaotic in the sense of what I allow people to do or not do, in sense of what I allow chat to do. So, as you've mentioned here in chat, giving players a treasure token, right, as one of a
Mm-hmm.
channel redemption for something to allow them to give a treasure token to somebody in a game, it's great. I'm gonna speak from experience here as doing this chaos for about 3 years now, with chat. I found that allowing chat to give benefits specifically to a single player tended to one side games a lot, for that player. Chat would definitely pick like who they thought the underdog was or who their favorite was, and then that would be kind of the end of the story, basically. So I changed a lot of my redemptions to be global effects, so that it's like, if chat decides they want to give somebody a treasure, it gives it to everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
The exception being, I have a target player loses 5 life, target player gains 5 life redemption that still exists, on my channel. That is a targeted effect that only affects one person, but each chat member can only redeem each of those redemptions once per stream. So someone can't just come in and spend, 10,000 points and just kill somebody in the pod. That's not a thing that they can do, right? And yes, the redemption to lose or gain 5 life is, I think, 1,500 points on my channel. So it takes them quite a while just to save up to do one of those if they want to. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then also limiting it to only one per stream for each person makes it so that they can't just come in and be like, haha, we're going to, kill somebody, or haha, we're going to make somebody have, twice as much life as everyone else in the pod, right? So, there's definitely a way that you need to, if you're going to do chat interaction that impacts the gameplay, right? You have to make sure you find that balance of what works and what doesn't work for for the whole pod, not just for you, the content creator, you, the streamer, um, or not just for a single pod member. Essentially, you need to find something that is a global effect that either impacts everybody equally in a good way or a bad way, right? Now, it's a lot harder to balance those types of things when you don't know what decks are coming to the table, right, from your pod mates. So there are definitely times where a deck has shown up at the table in chaos, and chat has done a few redemptions, and then you can definitely tell that that deck is abusing, the chat redemptions better than everyone else is, or maybe not abusing, but utilizing is maybe the better word to use, because and not necessarily intentionally, right? They may not have known this
Mm-hmm.
when they came to the pod that their deck was going to do this thing that chat has now enabled them to do, but that's the beauty of the chaos stream that I run in my eyes anyway, and that is that you never know what deck is going to do what at any given moment, because chat is just going to cause it to do so many things that it normally wouldn't do or normally can't do. Um, and you can get really wild with the redemptions. I mean, anyone who's been on my show will tell you that they've had games where they've died without taking any game actions, or games where they've won without taking any game actions, or games that have you know lasted an hour and a half to 2 hours and only went one turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Things like that happen. But then we also get games where chat decides they want to redeem a bunch of stuff that doesn't necessarily speed the game along in the aspect of killing anyone, but it gives us all a bunch of resources that allows us to just start doing ridiculous things when we start taking our actual turns. And that happens too, right? And so all of those interactions, I think, keep those people coming back to see what kind of wild thing can they do next.
Hmm. I do also think that there's a bit of metagaming that goes on, not intentionally necessarily, but I can say it's from my experience as having been a guest before that there
Mm.
are certain decks that I bring and certain decks that I don't.
I mean, you're definitely not wrong. I mean, so I tell most people not to worry about what type of deck they bring to my stream because it's
Hmm.
not really going to matter too much. Now, take that with a bit of a grain of salt in the aspect of there are certain decks that will definitely not function very well in my brand of chaos. I have a couple decks myself that definitely don't lend themselves to chaos. And so I tend not to play them on my own stream. One of them being I have a Sovereign Oakenek deck that is all 0/0 creatures, right? And chat
Hmm.
can make token copies of permanents off the top of people's libraries. Well, if you get a token copy of a 0/0, it's not really going to help you, right?
Hmm.
That thing's just going to go straight to the graveyard, and you're going to get nothing, and most likely your opponents are all going to get something, right? So I don't play that deck on my own stream very often because it doesn't jive well with the redemptions that exist. Um, but that being said, I mean, most of the time, regardless of what kind of deck you bring to the table, what I've been telling people lately with my stream is that whatever your deck is, whether it's a 1, 2, 3, or 4, chances are if anybody brings a 4 to the table, everyone at the table has a 4, right?
Hmm.
Because chat will, if they see something that is a game changer or something that breaks the game in some way that would make your deck competitive, they're going to give a copy of it to everybody at the table. Um, and so then now everybody will have a copy of it. Um, it it definitely makes the game quite ridiculous, and it definitely makes the game sometimes not really a game. But
Hmm.
it's a lot of fun. That's all I got to say.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, like the chaos element is a lot of fun, but I think when you're going to bring the chaos to the table, that's where balancing comes in. Uh, yeah, that there. So yeah, the things will naturally get balanced by the chaos, but I think from what I've seen, the more entertaining games wind up being ones where it's not necessarily like combo decks being brought. Let me put it that way. Because I am a
Yeah.
naturally combo player. So from my experience, there was a time when I brought my Selenia combo deck,
Mhm.
which is designed, which in that case was Selenia, Angel's Grace, and then I can't remember the name of the card, but it was Repay in Kind. So
Right.
Angel's Grace put me to 0. Angel's Grace made it so I couldn't lose. Selenia put me to 0, and then I set everyone else to 0. Um,
Yep.
it was a cool game. I think just about any other stream would have been awesome, but it didn't really interact with the chaos that much.
That's right. Yep. I remember.
Yep. Uh, so yeah. So that to me is one where you do kind of that's how I differentiate between what I would bring to your stream and what I wouldn't. Is that because this is part of because a big part of your stream is interacting with the chat, you want decks that are going to be impacted by the chat in some way. Not just like sped up or slowed down by it, but ones where what they flip is actually meaningful, where they feel like the decisions that they've made are important. And that's one of the gripes that people have with combo decks in general. Um, did that first or second turn little bit of chip actually matter if somebody did a combo like that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying and where you're coming from for sure. And did the combat decks lend themselves to the chaos on my channel? Not really. I mean, you're correct. I mean, you're either gonna pop off with your combo without really trying, or your combo's not gonna happen at all, or everyone else is gonna get pieces of your combo without you wanting them to have them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that definitely is for sure a thing that can and does happen. Whether or not it actually changes how chat feels about what they're doing is a different story. I think chat really just enjoys. affecting the game, right? As a whole,
Mm-hmm.
they like being able to just kind of mess with what's going on and make sure that no one can really, you know, stick to a game plan. They have to have multiples, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you want the players who are involved to be thinking on their feet and having to try to figure out how to solve whatever problem chat is posing for them.
That's right. That's correct. I think another thing I've been saying to a lot of my guests lately is I don't need you to worry about how to win the game. I need you to worry about how not to lose the game. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's because chat's going to do everything in their power to try and make it difficult for you to not die, basically. Um, and it's sometimes it's very hard to stop chat from being able to kill you or the pod as a whole. But it is doable as long as you're kind of like in the zone, I guess, with your own deck, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that aspect kind of reminds me a bit of Horde Magic, which was my favorite way to play.
Mm.
'Cause Horde Magic is when it's cooperative against an NPC style deck of tokens and some non-token spells that are thematic. I've been thinking about trying to get streams going for that, but I've had trouble getting them to fire. Um, but the cool thing is when you can use chat as kind of a horde. Chat redemption that caused 911 put a fire extinguisher on the screen. Juicing up mistakes from mates and a joke. That's also one where you can so you can make what do they call it? Are they emojis or not emojis? What's the term for it on there? Can't remember
You mean
offhand.
like a Twitch alert? You mean?
Kind of. I meant more like the symbols that you put on, but yeah.
So yeah, so like the emotes.
Yeah, emotes. Okay. I get emotes and emojis confused.
Yeah, they're
They're
very
kind of
close.
similar.
They're similar. They're very similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Old man magic, eh?
Yeah. Yes. This is welcome to J-Ro and Mr. Bevers' gripe about being old men. Yeah. Okay.
Don't forget. Don't think I forgot what you said earlier. The YouTube. I gotta put it on the YouTube.
I'm gonna put it on the YouTubes. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yep.
You don't film it directly onto YouTube, right? Like you record it first, and then you uh,
Hey,
and then you have to
it's
upload it
curious. We're
later.
all in this together.
We're all in this together, always. But
Hey,
yeah,
in
no.
case we needed more dating, right? That's the school musical.
Listen, I mean, we can keep going down this road if you want to, J-Ro, but
Ah, man. The fact that you think I'm controlling the road that we're going down is. Anyways.
well, listen, we're supposed to be talking about chat interaction, not necessarily chaos. So
Oh,
I assume there would
absolutely.
be some kind of path we're supposed to be following, right?
Oh, yeah. The path to exile, eh? Hopefully they'll let me do another one of these. No, I've got 2 more scheduled. I'm really convinced I'll never manage to do a full stream because I'd be so much really yapping friends in the chat. I mean, there are streams that are just that.
There are. Yeah, 100% there are. We're going to get a little off topic, but I mean, like, another thing with chat interaction is also just the chat, right? Don't forget that you don't have to have redemptions or anything like that to be interactive with your chat, right? You can, this is more about like engaging with the community that's there in your chat. The chaos that I bring to my channel um, kind of actually like I don't want to say it's a detriment to the community's discussion in the chat, but it tends to like bog the chat down a bit because there's so many redemptions going on. So then I think people tend to talk less in my chat because you know there's just so much in between that's going on. So like that can happen. But like you could literally do a stream where you don't even have to be on the screen. You could just be, you know, you could just have like a game on in the background or like a video of something that you enjoy watching or just having on in the background that's like in, what do you call it, public domain stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you could just have that playing while you just chat with the people who are in chat and just talk with them. And there's actually a section in Twitch called just chatting, right,
Mm-hmm.
for exactly that purpose. So you could just yap with people, right? I mean, it's
Absolutely.
totally a viable way to engage with the community and keep people interested and keep them coming back. um, I think a lot of people like being able to talk with the person who's streaming, right? As well, like on a
Mm-hmm.
regular basis. Like, that will definitely keep people coming back to the stream and feeling like they're part of the community, right?
Mm-hmm. So one of the streams I've thought of doing before but haven't actually done is I've seen people just like I've seen Bobby Christine do a stream of just deck building and
Yeah,
chatting with
that's true. Hmm.
chatting with people who are in the chat. I've seen people do streams of themselves just typing up Moxfield lists.
Right. Yep. Exactly. Right.
Then when they get near the
And
end, you can always ask the chat about includes. You can ask them,
yep.
okay, so now that we've typed up the list and you've sort of seen this here, what bracket would you put it in?
Hmm. For sure. Yeah, there's definitely that. There's those things as well, and I mean, you can even do that from a higher level interaction if you prefer, right? You can say, okay, chat, how many creatures should we have in this deck, right? And then have like a vote or something, and ask them to give you an idea, or maybe you say, how many creatures should we put in? Give me the reasoning, right? And they can give you like a little blurb in chat, and then you can pick the one you like the best, and that's the one you stick with. Okay, so now we now have how many creatures we're going to have. What are we going to include in that list, right? Now we have this limitation of how many we can have. What are we putting in, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are we putting in? What versus what are we cutting? Or you do the thing where you ask chat to just give me includes that you would put in this commander's deck list, and you
Mm-hmm.
just add all of them. And then once you put the timer on, okay, we're no longer adding cards. You look at how many you have. Let's say you have like 125 cards in the deck list. Okay, you got to cut 25 cards. Now you walk through it with your audience chat and say, okay, what are we cutting? Why are we cutting it?
Reminds
And
me a
those
bit
kind
of
of
brewing
things.
with Benji.
Yeah. See, exactly, right? Like these kind of things. Like Benji tends to help you drive the bus, right? In the
Mm-hmm.
aspect of brewing and cuts and stuff like that. But chat definitely adds things as well during those streams to say, hey, what about this card? What about that card? Why are you including this? This doesn't really work with that thing you've got added. Like chat will say those things, and as long as you're listening and paying attention, they will notice, right? And they will view it as interaction, which is what you want them to, right? So at the end of the day, they're your community, and you want them to feel like they're contributing, right? Um, and in all honesty, your content will be better when they do, right? When they do contribute, and you listen to what they have to say, it will be better. I mean, not I'm not saying everything that chat tells you is golden piece of advice and
Oh yeah.
or something that you should follow to the letter, but it doesn't. It also means that let's say 5 out of 9 times chat might give you a suggestion that actually makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows, right?
Like, imagine how special it would feel to watch the gameplay footage of somebody playing a deck that you helped create on a stream, and they
Yeah.
shout you out and they say, "See, that was a great call. Bevers
Hmm.
really knows what he's talking about."
Exactly, right? And you have no idea, like, since this content that you're making could be for long form content that gets put somewhere to be watched at a future date rather than live on a Twitch stream or something like that. Those people might see that shout out 3 weeks from now and be like, oh, I do remember giving that person that piece of advice about this card, and now they actually listened and they put it in that deck and they played it and remembered that I gave them that advice. That's awesome, right?
Mm-hmm. That helps
I'm not
you
saying,
build your
again,
community across across
platforms.
sites as well. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I'm not saying that you need to remember every single person that ever told you how to include a card or what to include and not to include, because we're all human. We're not going to expect everyone to remember every single little thing that anyone's ever told us about a deck that we've built. But, you know, the times you do remember, it will matter to those people for sure.
Kirby, Shibum's Scryfall post. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the random Scryfall posts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, imagine Shibum comes across your content and then sees that you're shouting him out. It's like, holy, this person was paying attention?
This person's actually seeing those tweets. That's just random Scryfall nonsense.
Mm-hmm. Like when I was in Chicago last year, or this past, well, few months ago,
Right.
um,
Yep.
I as I was going to go up to chief him, he came up to me and said, "Oh, you're you're the unsummoned skull." I had no idea he even knew who I was.
There you go. See, you worry about it too much, J-Ro. People know who you are.
uh, that is amazing to me, but yeah. Um, I have to wait. I have to just up and say I added a blank because he thinks, yeah, absolutely. And you never know when somebody's going to have that bit of advice for you because people have different frames of reference. They have
Mhm.
different metagames that they play in. They also have different just experiences in general. Uh, so, like, I have a different level of experience because I used to play competitively and because I started playing as a combo player.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
look at cards very differently from some other people. Uh, you have a lot of experience with with Chatcast as well, but you also have a very different metagame with people who are non-US. And you have a metagame because you've played with a lot of different types of content creators.
Yeah, I mean, like I try my best to play with people from all over, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
just stick to North America if I can, right? Like, the whole reason I started my Saturday time slot, uh, at the time I did, which is 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, is so that it was available to people overseas, right? On both sides, right? Whether it
Mm-hmm.
was people from Australia, or Asia, Japan, or whether it's people from Europe, right? At least that time slot is kind of reasonable for most of those folks. It's not the best for people in Australia, Japan area because it's like real early in the morning for them at that time, but like it's still doable, right? Um, and at least it's Sunday, I guess, right at that point for them, as opposed to Saturday. But in Europe, it's like 7 p.m. their time, so it's not too bad. It's about time that most people would be sitting down to play Commander, right? Anyway, so it works out. It works out pretty well. I mean, I think the worst ones are the folks kind of like further into Europe, right, who get a little bit later in the day, but it's still
Asia
not
can
too
be a
bad
little
considering
tricky.
it's
I have a
Saturday
Malaysian
into Sunday.
player in the skull symbol.
Yep.
We try to weave in when we can. I've got a couple games in with him before, which is pretty cool. But yeah, learning how to do things with that. It's also, well, this is slightly off topic, but there are different bots that you can put in. Uh,
Yes.
it's, I have a timer bot,
Mhm.
so that our friend
Having
time.
something like
Yeah.
MTG bot in your chat as well is very handy because you can have it essentially people can put like exclamation point card name and then the name of the card basically, or maybe it's just the name of the yeah it's card name and then name of the card, and then it'll like spit out a text based version of the card into chat, right? And
Hmm.
so if they're having a hard time reading the cards on your various streams or whatever, that'll just spit out the text-based version for them so they can read it right there in chat. And I don't know exactly whether MTG Bot works anywhere outside of Twitch right now. I'm guessing there are equivalent things for the other chats that are out there, like YouTube and TikTok and things like that, and I guess Instagram even now these days. You can stream on Instagram now, and there's most likely a chat bot that you can get that does something similar. Um, but those things are super helpful to make the chat feel like they can interact with your content in a way that is meaningful to them, right, and allows them accessibility, right, to your content as well.
Hmm. Yeah, accessibility is important, especially when you're dealing with some people who have, say, vision issues or uh,
Yep.
so it can be difficult to read what's on the screen at a given time. I know some players will have their gatherer window show up. Some players will superimpose card names and images.
Mhm.
Uh, there's different ways to do it, but yeah, it is often so often just if all you're doing is sharing the um, is sharing the gameplay screen, that's often going to be blurry.
Yes, that is very true. It's always best to have at least some sort of card reader available on the stream for people to see a more enhanced version of the card, whether or not it's. And this, we're talking for live streams, right?
Mm-hmm.
In edited content, obviously, I think a lot of folks will these days know that putting a high res image in the middle or on the side of your gameplay video is a good idea, just so that people who are watching can follow along with what's being played, and it makes the card slot a lot more legible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like there's lots of aspects in that area as well that you can do to enhance things. What was the other thing I was going to say? Is like you mentioned, people who have maybe eyesight problems and things like that, but one of the other things that I forgot to mention earlier about the chat redemptions and stuff on Twitch is that it's all integrated on the back end of Twitch now. You used to have to use things like third-party applications that would allow you to do the channel point redemptions to trigger alerts and things like that to signify when things were happening. Twitch has put that all on the back end of their own system now, so you can do it all directly through Twitch, including the overlay that lets you play alerts and play sound effects and all those kind of things. So for instance, with my chat redemptions for all my chaos things, when they get redeemed, most likely there's a sound effect that plays in the background, and that's not only for chat's benefit to know that they get to like play this cool sound effect that happens when they redeem it, but it also gives you, the content creator / streamer, in my case, I use it as an audio cue to go, hey, something happened, somebody redeemed something, so that I don't necessarily have to keep my eyes on the queue all the time to see whether people are redeeming things. The queue is another big part of the redemption stuff on Twitch. You need to have it open and accessible, so that you can deal with it. That being said, one of the things that I don't have on my channel yet that I need to look into doing is that a moderator on your channel can actually manage the queue, the redemption queue for you without you having to touch it. So as long as there's somebody who's a moderator on your channel in chat, they can go ahead and start clearing things out of the queue or giving you, reminders in chat, say, hey, by the way, this redemption is still pending, you need to resolve it, those kind of things. I haven't done that on my stream yet, but it does exist. It is a thing that is available to you as a content creator. If you can get a moderator to help you run those kind of things through Twitch, it's definitely going to be a game changer for sure, because, I guess pun intended with game changer, but it'll just make it easier for you to manage not only playing the pod itself, but also managing all the redemptions that are going on. And that's, of course, if you're doing redemptions the way I do redemptions, which they're just chaotic and all these ridiculous things are going on. But even having that moderator to do things like managing, say, hey, X, Y, and Z told you got to do goblin voices for the next turn, right? So you've got 3 turns of goblin voices. Someone who can just keep track of that for you takes one thing off your plate as the streamer, right? So, find good people to help moderate your communities. That's another way to keep the interaction going smoothly, right?
And infinite tokens, not sponsored, just love them.
Not sponsored, just love them. Yeah.
Help with the tokens. They help with. They can even help with like keeping notes like that. So with regards to pausing the speech and the amount of messages that come in, some of them will have a cooldown time. So they'll say that you can only put in one message every so and so seconds or something. So that will sometimes slow that down.
Yeah, so I mean, the auto mod on Twitch is very aggressive to start off. If you don't tweak it in some way as a content creator, you're probably doing your community a disservice, to be honest. And it's aggressive for the reasons it needs to be, in the aspect of keeping it so that people can't just come in and just start spamming like crazy if they're not
Yeah.
following the channel, or you get a bunch of bots that trigger a bunch of messages all at once, or you get like a raid that comes in and just starts telling you to go and buy follows somewhere or whatever. These things happen, and the auto mod is there to stop most of that stuff, but it can also impact the real people in your channel as well, right?
It also helps keep those bots from getting buried. It's occurred to me, for me before. I've seen a bot message and I had to go back and try to find it.
Right, yeah, because there's just so many other things happening. Yeah.
Yeah, being a spam chat, that does not sound like fun.
That's right. Yeah. But yeah, so like the auto mod is definitely something that you should take a look at and in the settings on your Twitch streams and just make sure it's tweaked to the way you want it to be, basically. I'm not going to tell you how you should set it because it's going to be different for everyone, right? What you need for your channel and what you need for your community is going to be different than anyone else. It's not going to be the same. No two communities are the same. No two communities are a cookie cutter, right? Like it's not a cookie cutter shape, basically.
Even if there's a lot of overlap, they can still be very different because the people presenting are very different.
That's correct. And I mean, this goes along the lines of what is being said here in chat, right? Is that, you know, you might act differently channel to channel yourself as a viewer, right? Let alone how everyone else acts in your community, right?
Hmm.
So the way they speak and the cadence at which they speak and those kind of things in chat can change channel to channel. Maybe they're more confident in someone else's channel than your own for whatever reason, right? Maybe they're just more boisterous in your channel than they are elsewhere. Who knows, right? But there's so many different things that you can do uh, with the auto mod and things like that to alleviate that type of stuff from happening
Hmm.
in the first place, that you can basically you should tweak it to how you want it to work. Basically, do you want people to be able to talk as fast as they want? Make sure you go and change your auto mod to allow that. Do you want to make sure that people can't just send 8 messages in a row? You can change that too, right? You can tweak all of those things, all those settings. So just make sure you go and review it. That's all.
Yeah, it's gonna sound a bit ironic coming from me, but if you notice people behaving differently in your chat as opposed to someone else's, don't ascribe any meaning to it. It's a tough thing to do, but just because they're behaving differently, that's an observation. You don't want to try to hypothesize it. Maybe it has to do with time of day. Maybe it has to do with the type of streaming that you're doing. But but just noticing that they are quieter in your stream than in someone else's does not have any inherent meaning to it. It doesn't mean they're better, you're worse, anything like that. And I know there's a lot of irony in me making that statement because I am somebody who constantly has to fight that voice in my head because I have OCD. And I try to apply logic and consistency and patterns to everything. But there is no answer to that question or explanation for that observation that will make you feel better. Twitch Stream test community that's been set up. Well, I will say, in terms of a place, if you're looking for a place where you can find people to help you figure things out without having to necessarily like impact your audience, a place to look for that would be the content help or content tech help Discord server that was created by one of the Game Nights editors.
Jake Boss, right?
Jake
Yeah.
Boss, yep. Sorry, there's the number of four-letter J's. Didn't
Yep.
want to get the
Yep.
wrong one.
Yeah.
So
No
that would
worries.
be primary place I would look if you're looking for some sort of tech help and you don't want to impact your numbers at all.
But
Um,
I think the question is also more geared toward, like, is there a way to, like, no, you can correct me if I'm wrong, from chat, but are you talking more like, is there a place where you can stream to from your setup and have people look at it to tell you if there's anything that needs to be tweaked, that isn't essentially like an on live thing, like a way to go essentially private streaming or something like that? Is that what you're asking?
it sounds like that's what they meant. Okay. Well, it, you say that there's no numbers to impact, but until you get something called affiliate, you have an average number or a number of viewers that you're trying to get to. The more streams you have with fewer than the average number, the the harder it is to get that average up, because you have to increase the sample size and increase the numbers to offset those smaller streams. I know this because when I was pushing for affiliate, I accidentally left the stream up overnight, and it tanked the average.
Right, yeah, because you only had like one viewer or whatever for the like 10 hours or whatever that was going on.
Yeah, I was really upset, and I thought that it was going to take a really long time to get the average back up, but this is where I will shout them out every opportunity I can. The CRGR, the CR Game Room folks, especially, particularly like to shout out. So, especially Ingledoom. They are a server full of folks who play retro video games. I found Ingledoom when he was playing Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. And so those folks helped me inflate the numbers back up by observing streams of me playing Arena, just to help me get my numbers back up, even though they didn't really care much about Arena. And so that is a large part of what I do with what I call Team Hands In. It's a supportive server of people who are helping each other get the numbers up that they need, talking with each other about the type of content that we create, giving each other feedback and suggestions and such. I always wanted to be on a content creation team. Well, not necessarily content creation. I wanted to be on a Pro Tour testing team. But because I played combo decks, nobody would ever have me. So, this is the closest I got. So, Scarius, if you're interested, I'd love to have you in there as well. Bevers, you're interested? Feel free.
Sure. So the other thing I was going to say, I didn't want to interrupt you while you were
That's
giving
okay.
the spiel there.
That's
The other
okay.
thing that you could do for this specific scenario where you want to stream somewhere but not to Twitch, so that you can get feedback from people without impacting your Twitch numbers, my suggestion would be to, instead of going live per se, set up your OBS or your various streaming software the way you would do it, and then get a bunch of people that you trust their opinions and things, whoever it may be, to join you in a Discord chat and then share your OBS screen so that they can see what you're going to be broadcasting. They can give you feedback on what your scenes look like, the transitions that occur, things like that, without you actually going live. The difference will be is that you won't necessarily get feedback on whether your audio and stuff is coming across properly in the broadcast, because of course it will be coming through Discord as opposed to the Twitch broadcast, but at least gives you an idea and gets some feedback on your layout of your scenes, what kind of things you're trying to do with how things look, all of that kind of stuff. You can definitely get feedback on all of those things by doing exactly that. And they can talk to you in real time, right? Because they're either, on voice or they're on a chat window with you while watching your stream, in quotes, right, on Discord.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and it makes it much more approachable in the aspect of you can have whoever you want in there, right? You can invite specific people to be like, hey, can you come take a look at this when you have some time, that kind of stuff. Or you can set up a session with people and just say, hey, at this time on this day, I'm going to go live, in quotes, on Discord, streaming with my setup so that you can see what I'm doing. Please come and give me any feedback you might have. People will be more than happy to help, I would imagine, right? To give that kind of feedback. And then
Absolutely.
when you're ready to go to Twitch or wherever you're going to stream to, whether it's Twitch or YouTube or, Instagram or what have you, you can actually, at least in most cases, at least with Twitch anyway, at a minimum Twitch, I'm sure the others have the same thing. There's actually like a test server that you can connect to broadcast out to Twitch, but not actually hit your channel. It doesn't let anybody watch it, but you can at least test like your connection strength and make sure you're not dropping frames and things like that if that's what you're worried about with your setup, right? So that type of thing does exist so that you can at least do that tech test as well, right? To make sure that it is all going to connect properly and work. right? And then you just switch the server in your settings on OBS or whatever tool you're using, and then you can point back to your own channel, and away you go.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, I have OBS and Streamlabs, but I use them for two different things.
Right. Yep. For sure. I mean, the Streamlabs OBS is basically just OBS with a reskin on it anyway,
Yep.
right? So they're basically the same tool.
Yep. There's some things that are layered. Like I will usually use OBS for the virtual webcam. So I can do you can do the sort of thing where you have OBS being used for the virtual webcam, and then you have Streamlabs um, showing the gameplay area. And so you can layer programs like that. You just have to make sure that you close other things that you have up, because other things like if you run so if you have like your internet up and such, that can sometimes be a little bit too much.
It can be quite taxing on your system to be running two versions of OBS.
Yep. But it is one of the ways that you can stream yourself using the virtual webcam and like a Moxio playtester. I will frequently have people on my stream using Moxio Playtester because my favorite streams are Work in Progress Wednesdays. So people test out decks before buying them.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
But we are actually about 10 minutes over, so this has been an awesome talk. It's been great talking with you, Mr. Bevers. Great having you in chat, Scurious, and for a moment there, Donnie. So, Mr. Bevers, where can people find your content?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I mean, thanks for having me, J-Ro. Really appreciate you asking me to come out to talk about these things. I really appreciate it.
It's
But
my
you can
honor.
find me in a bunch of places. Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Bluesky. I don't really use Twitter too much. I keep saying it because it's just ingrained in my head from so long of saying it over and over. But I haven't used Twitter in over 3 months now, so don't look for me there because I have not been active on that site. My account still exists there, but I have not logged in 3 months.
Yeah, mine's active pretty much only to share pictures.
I don't even do that anymore. I don't even log in at all. But yeah, the account still exists, but I don't use it. And then yeah, so Bluesky, YouTube, Twitch. You can find all my stuff on those platforms. I do have Instagram that I occasionally post to now and then I have a TikTok account, and I think that's about it. I don't think I have any other content related things that exist out there. So yeah, you can find me in all those places under Mr. Bevers. Basically, if you type in Mr. Bevers and you find a man wearing a cheese head, that's probably me.
Yep. And if you type in Mr. Bevers, you might still find somebody Canadian, but probably not the right person.
You might still find me, actually. If you Google it, if you see a man with a cheese head, chances are it's me still.
Well, it could be somebody from Wisconsin, but maybe. Alright, well, thank you all for coming out. I'm going to end the recording.